So that's important. And if you think about Sukkot, it really highlights this issue of the nations, right? Again, we talked about it the other day. You go back to the table of nations that we'll read about in a few weeks, and in Genesis chapter 10, read about 70 people spreading out over the earth. And of course, there's 70 according to the Masoretic text in the Hebrew that goes with Moses down to Egypt. And this 70 becomes this picture of the nations. And at Sukkot, at the Feast of Tabernacles, there's 70 bullocks placed upon the altar. Kind of this picture of the nations, kind of this picture of the nation of Israel interceding on behalf of the nations. And on Shemini Atzeret, at the conclusion of all of it, there's one bullock that's offered, kind of pointing us to this one God, and one God and his people, Israel, taking on a level of holiness, right? But God uses the nation of Israel to reach the nations. And God uses the man Yeshua to reach the apostles, to reach the Jewish people. He came to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And then, of course, he gives them a mission. He gives them a commander's intent to go out and to reach the nations, right? The Sukkot fulfillment, the Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles requirement. And much of what we see in the book of Acts is this unfolding of God's plan for the nations through the nation of Israel. And of course, he uses a few select men to do that. It begins with Kepha, and then of course we see it moving on with Rav Shaul. And the book of Acts follows that narrative. And we've been in the book of Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, where we've been looking at Paul's having to address a whole host of issues, where he's having to address how do we live out this biblical narrative that began in the Torah? How do we take this to the nations, to the Gentiles? And there are all these issues. There's these growing pain issues, right? Where this Hebraic faith is going out into a Gentile setting.